You're listening to On the Way Home with your host, Emmy Kelly.
Welcome to On the Way Home. I'm your host, Emmy Kelly, and this is the podcast where we explore the solutions, stories, and people working to end homelessness across Canada and around the world. Today, I'm thrilled to be joined by Juha Kahila, Head of International Affairs of Finland's Y Foundation, an organization at the heart of Finland's global leadership in ending homelessness. Today, we will be hearing from Juha about how he is working to shape international collaboration and also a unique perspective on what it truly takes to build a society that works for everyone. Let's jump in. Hey, Juha, thank you so much for joining us today on the way home.
Hey, it's my pleasure and thanks for the invitation.
We'll start with our signature question and ask you, what does home mean to you?
Well, it's a safe place for sure, a foundation for everything else in my life and place where I can, just be myself with my family and forget everything else.
Would you start off, Juha, by telling us a little bit about yourself, your passion, what brought you into this space, where your passion for housing and homelessness and your interest is coming from?
Yeah, sure. Well, I have been working in the field of homelessness and housing for the past 16 years, more or less. But before that, I was working at the child protection and then working with young people. And I think somewhere during those years, I found a passion to especially work with young homeless people because in the child protection I could see quite many young people leaving the care, ending up being homeless, and I think that's something that I would like to work on. That how we could make sure that when people are leaving from care, that they don't end up on the streets or shelter or in a temporary accommodation. So from the child protection, I move to work at the Youth Housing Association Services. So I have been a support worker for quite many years in my past, and that's something that I'm not too sure that quite how many people actually know that I have been doing the support work, and I'm really proud of that part of my work career. And then yeah, from there I start working as a support worker for young homeless people, and then after a while developing the services at the same NGO, and then working together on the National Housing First network, participating in trainings and get to know people and so forth. So I think a little by little, the passion to work towards ending homelessness grew on me as well from as the years went by. And then so I think that was the starting point. And then since then, 2010, my passion has been to end youth homelessness and like I said, when the years went by, to end all homelessness. And that has carried my vision and my perspective on things until today. And then of course at the moment I'm really happy that I'm working at the Y Foundation as the head of the international affairs, and then before this role I was working at the Y Foundation as well, but leading the National Housing First network, which is a really important network bringing all the key stakeholders together in Finland and then developing the work together towards the ending homelessness goal.
I want to hear more. I think our listeners would love to hear more too about the network and those different pieces. So if you can keep those in mind for us, we'd love to come back and understand more about that. Finland is recognized as a global leader in ending homelessness. Can you walk us through how the country transitioned from emergency response system to a housing first approach?
Yeah, it hasn't been a magic trick and it didn't happen overnight. So I think we need to roll back to 1980s when we had around 20,000 homeless people, more or less, and a lot of people, especially people sleeping on the streets. Unfortunately, some of them died on the streets as well because we didn't have enough shelter beds for everyone and so forth. And I think during the 80s, we started to realize that maybe homelessness, it's not a fault of the individuals, but maybe there is something wrong in our systems. And then in the 80s, there was a big social welfare act that we put together, which also have something around housing and housing services. So I think that was the starting point. And of course, the Y Foundation was also founded in 1985 with the sole purpose of acquiring homes for homeless people. And then I think we can move to 1990s, and then we start to build even more state subsidized affordable housing. On the contrary, what you did in Canada when you stopped building affordable housing, we start building even more affordable housing, and with that we were able to decrease the number of homeless families quite a bit. And then we came to year 2006, and the number of homeless people didn't went down anymore. So there was a need for a shift on our focus and how we do the work. And that's also the time when we got the housing minister Jan Vapaavuori from the National Coalition Party. And he appointed this group of 4 Ys back in the days, 2006, 2007. And then the 4 Ys, it included a bishop, a politician from the opposition party, former Y Foundation CEO, and then the leader of the social and health services from the city of Helsinki. And those 4 persons, they came back with a report called Name on the Door. And that is still basically the framework for the Finnish housing first system, so that everything starts from the home and with the support. And that's the starting point, not the ending point in a way. Because before that, we had work with the old staircase model, that first you need to take care of other things in your life and the challenges. Maybe you have addiction, you need to take care of that, then the mental health challenges. And after you have taken care of all of those things, at the end of the ladder, there would be the home. So we changed the system completely in a way. And then I'm really happy that the politicians back in the days, they were bold enough to see the big picture. So we didn't start with a small pilot or a small projects here and there, but it was a complete systemic change into housing first. And I have always said that housing first is in Finland is more like this holistic approach, how we do the work inside the homelessness field.
Did you say the program, like what you referenced before, did you say it was called Name on the Door?
That was the report. And
Okay.
and for that report, the whole work around the housing first is based more or less. And the first program started 2008, and the aim was to end long-term homelessness, and it was called Paavo 1. And after Paavo 1, there was Paavo 2, and the goal was still the same, to end long-term homelessness and so forth. And then 2016, we aimed the focus into prevention, and then 2016, 2019, the national program was all about prevention. I'm really happy about that one as well, because I think by then we realized that housing first and prevention has to go hand in hand. They need each other, so we can achieve the goal of decreasing the number of homeless people at the end of the day. And then, I think one of the main things has been that there has been the political will behind since 2008 behind the work, meaning that all the different political parties have been part of the government at some point between 2008 and today. And there has been the tradition of having these national programs with different focus points. And then at the moment, we have a government, and once again, the goal is to end long-term homelessness, and then we'll see if we will get there. But I think it's a good thing that we keep the tradition of having these national programs, and it gives the sign that there is still the political backbone and will to do things differently and end homelessness.
Sorry, I don't know why my camera's gone blurry, but what does Paavo mean? You said Paavo 1, Paavo 2? Or I don't know if I'm saying that right, but
yeah, it basically means ending the long-term homelessness in English.
wow, in such a short word. That's
Yeah.
cool. Like, was it made up just for the campaign, or is it actually?
It was made for the campaign, so we are so efficient here in Finland that we need to have short words.
That's great, love it. The Y Foundation has been central to this transformation. Can you tell us a bit about the organization's key role in supporting Finland's housing first journey?
Yeah, well, the sole thing for us since 1980s has been that we provide housing for low-income people and homeless people. And at the moment, we have housing stock, almost 20,000 apartments around Finland. And we aim them for, like I said, homeless people and low-income people and so forth. And well, our former CEO back in 2007, he was part of the 4 Ys who made the report Name on the Door. And of course, we've had a big role especially when it comes to the housing side of the national program. So we have provided a lot of housing into the programs and been also coordinating the National Housing First network since 2013. So I think Y Foundation has been one of the key stakeholders around the whole housing first here in Finland for sure.
You personally have led initiatives bringing together policymakers, researchers, and frontline workers.
Mm.
Why is cross-sector collaboration so crucial in addressing homelessness effectively?
Uh, well, I think it's the same thing I have been saying quite a long time, not just me, but quite many people, not only in Finland, but across the world, in Europe and in Canada and globally, that the homeless sector cannot end homelessness by themselves. And I think that has been this certain aspect that the other sectors and some of the politicians believe that homeless sector can take care of the homelessness, but that's not how it goes. We need to have the decision makers, because at the end of the day they are the ones who have the power to change things from the upper side of the things. Then we need to have the perspective from the people who actually work with our tenants, who work with the people who are on the streets, on the shelters, in temporary accommodation. We need to know how they feel about the work, how it should be done and coordinated from their side. And then of course we need the researchers. The data and research and studies, they are really valuable for us when doing the advocacy work, doing the lobbying work, see actually what really works in the big picture. So I think we need to have combination of all the key stakeholders working towards the same goals. And then I think one of the things we often forgot when talking about ending homelessness is that we need the housing sector to be part of the solution. And I think the word homelessness tells the whole story about that as well. So sometimes I feel that we should be doing more work together with the housing sector as well, regarding especially when I attend to conferences and seminars and so forth. I rarely see any people from the housing sector attending any of those things, and I think that would be really valuable for the whole work that we would do more collaboration with the housing sector and make them also understand that they have a role in this when we are talking about ending homelessness. And then I hope that narrative will change in the future, but I think it's still a long way to go.
Have you had success in bringing that sector to the table, would you say, in Finland?
I think it's hard work in Finland as well. I think the main difference compared to many other countries is that we have quite big state subsidized affordable housing sector in Finland. So it's quite easy to get those different organizations on the same table, and quite many of them are also in the Housing First national network, part of the network. But when it comes to the private landlords, the private sector, I think then it can be a little bit more trickier. And then, but I think there has been some success in a way that, for example, when we have developed some preventive tools against evictions, for example, so some of the biggest private landlords have taken some of those services into their own model as well. So I think there is something we have done right, but I think there's still a lot to be done as well for sure in Finland.
And through your work with the Nordic Homelessness Alliance and Housing First Europe Hub, what emerging trends or innovations in homelessness prevention are you most excited about?
Well, of course, I must say that in Finland, I'm still really happy that we have the housing advisors. So housing advisors are sort of these middlemen between the tenant and the landlord. And if there are some problems for the tenants to pay the rents, for example, they can contact the housing advisors, and then the housing advisors can see how they can help the tenant to pay the missing rent, or make some kind of payment plan, or fill in the benefits papers, or whatever the case may be. Or if they are having some kind of trouble with the neighbors, they can also be try to settle those differences. And that has been a really good way to prevent evictions. And in Finland, that model has worked really well. And then now there is a limited time law until 2027. And then after that, there will be evaluation of the law. And hopefully it will be a permanent law that each and everyone living in Finland should be able to access housing advice services if they need them. So that has been really good one. But then, especially from the Nordic countries, I think Sweden have a really good thing going on together with the foreclosure offices, and they are part of the prevention work, working together with the NGOs and social landlords. And then I don't have too much details about that yet, but I think that's something that we could also learn here in Finland, that how we could cooperate more with the foreclosure offices, and then make sure that they are working on this end as well. And then I think there are many good practices. I've heard that there are some in some European countries. Uh, there are some, I would say, universal preventive tools at schools, for example, that the school nurses can ask what is the housing situation, for example, and I think that's a really clever one, easy thing to do. And then also having a doctor appointment, the doctor can ask what is the housing situation. So one simple question can reveal a lot, and I think that's something that that quite would be quite easy to scale in other countries as well. But I'm not too sure why it hasn't happened yet. I know that we tried it in Finland when we had the national program around prevention, that at the doctor's appointment they would be able to ask the question, how is the housing situation? But for one reason or another, that didn't went through. So hopefully in the future. But I think those are the things that I'm really happy about at the moment, and especially with the Swedish model, working together with the foreclosure offices, that what will be the end result and what can we learn, and if we can copy that model to Finland as well.
And the challenges Finland might be facing now with some changes at the broader sector and the homelessness count, like how is that doing? What would you say? I know you live and breathe this every day, but for all our listeners, I wonder if you can kind of talk us through the landscape of, you know, what it truly meant to end homelessness. I know you said everyone has to be at the table, there has to be cross-sector collaboration, and now what you're seeing and how that impacts. If you can just kind of walk us through a little bit so that, you know, we listening to this show understand the nuances of, you know, what you, the organizations you've served in, and the country have kind of faced to get to, you know, some of those challenges faced, how you overcame them to get to um, where, you know, homelessness is at functional zero. And I guess that would be, is it chronic homelessness that's at functional zero in Finland?
It was. It's not
Okay.
anymore, I would say. But yeah, I think in the past we would have been able to say that it was functional zero, but not anymore, unfortunately.
Why?
Well, the number of homeless people have been increasing. So last year was the first year in 12 years that the numbers actually went up a little bit. So in 23, the number of homeless people was 3,429, and last year it was 3,806. So there was an 11% increase in the number of homeless people, and the predictions are that the numbers will go up this year as well. And unfortunately, my personal prediction is that they will go up next year as well, because some of the decisions that the government has made in the past 2 years, and now we are seeing the consequences on a quite rapid pace.
So, like, can you tell us, like, what decisions or what the contributors are, like, that you're able to kind of make the predictions on the numbers?
Well, there has been a quite big cuts to the social benefits, so people can't afford their housing anymore, and I think that has been something that we were almost able to eliminate the homelessness because of poverty. And now I think it has made a small comeback in a way, that there are some people who just can't afford their housing at the moment, and that's the sole reason why they are homeless. So that's the biggest reason that why the numbers have been going up, that the government got the social benefits on a quite heavy hand. And then the other thing is that they also got the funding of some of the NGOs working especially on the prevention side of the work. And then now they are thinking about cutting the production of state subsidized affordable housing, not next year, but starting from 2027. So if that goes through, I think it's fair to say that, you know, the number of homeless people will go up next year and 27 as well. And then it's a really unfortunate situation, because I think what we have shown to the world globally is that when you work together, you have the political will and you have all the pieces together, you can actually end homelessness. So homelessness, it's not inevitable part of the system, but it's something that we can actually fix and end. But now we can see that we had a perfectly fine working system, but when you start taking the puzzle pieces of the system, we can see a bit different consequences quite fast, and then that's a shame. But of course, at the Y Foundation and the whole sector, we are trying everything in our power to advocate the work, and of course use the global visibility as well, that hey, there are quite many hundred people coming to Finland every year to see the work we have been doing around the homelessness and housing first. So please don't break what has been working and what has been the world leading model in the past.
That's so great. And I also think about the piece that you shared with us about, almost like the national shame that drove the impetus to end homelessness many years ago. Finland feeling the pride of, their people, and how could we ever allow people to be homeless and on the streets in our country. And I felt that a lot when I was there too, even the responses from
Yeah.
yourself and others, like, you have not seen anyone intense, have you like,
Yeah.
there's definitely a feeling throughout the country that homelessness is not acceptable, which is, a cultural piece that I found really um, interesting. And obviously, you know you were talking about your work too and advocacy with government and others, that there is definitely that element of shame that comes with allowing, Finnish citizens to be on the streets and to have to live, in an undignified manner. It is really treated as a right, which is really impressive. You, I know you also have friends in Canada,
Many
and
friends.
many friends in Canada. And I think that, because of the work you do, you probably understand our system to some degree. You've
Mm,
often said that no one should be without a home in a
mm.
society that works. So I'm wondering if you can share with us from your experience and understanding of Canada's landscape, because you have had the advantage of seeing your country move the needle from, extreme homelessness to functional zero. If you were to look at Canada's landscape, could you tell the listeners, what do you think would need to change, or what would have to be true for us to really become a country where society truly works for everyone?
Yeah, that's a excellent and good question, and I think it goes beyond homelessness in a way that I believe the starting point, and I feel like the Dr. Andrew Boosary from Toronto has been talking about the issue of poverty a lot in Canada in the past couple of years, and I think it all lies there in a way. And what I have witnessed in Canada is that there are so many great organizations, so many great city officials, so many great ministers I have been able to meet who are eager to do the right thing, but for one reason or another, it will always end up more or less having words on a paper, but then the action part is missing in a way. That's how I see it. But I also understand that the the governance is a bit different. So the cities have some responsibilities, and then there's the province level, and then there's the governmental level. So I think it would be really important to bring all these different governance levels together and actually write down something, what would be the paper how to end homelessness in Canada together, because I feel like there are so many cities that are eager to do the good work, but then they're frustrated because the province don't give them the tools to do the right things that they would like to do. So I think that would be the first step, in a way that there would be a clear political commitment that ending homelessness would not just be desirable thing to do, but actually doable thing to do, and that's something we want to do, not just talk about it. So that would be the first part I would say, and then a strong affordable housing system. I know you had it in the 80s, and the funny thing is that you actually built more state subsidized affordable housing than us in the 80s. And then in the early 90s you stopped and we kept going, and I think now we can see some of the consequences regarding those different decisions. So what does strong affordable housing system would mean from the Canadian perspective? I think that's something that would need to be written down as well, because I think I have visited Canada now for 6 times, maybe in Ottawa, Winnipeg, Toronto, and Quebec. And when talking about affordable housing, I think there are, as many answers regarding as how many times I asked the question, what does affordable housing mean? So I think there could be this kind of definition. What does affordable really means? Does it mean that in the city of Toronto, where studio apartment rent is 2,000 Canadian dollars, that affordable is 80% of that? I don't think so, and I don't believe many of the Canadians think so either. So I think that would be another thing, to have this strong affordable housing system, and what does affordable mean, and start building the housing. I think that's quite simple thing to do as well in a way. So you don't see housing only as assets or these things you can speculate and make profits, but you see them as a basic human right, and everyone should have one, and that should be the basic foundation for each and everyone's life. And then one of the most important things I have learned as well is that partnership with First Nations and local communities, that's really important thing to do, to build respect, equity, and trust. Because, of course, the cultural and systemic things are a bit different compared to Finland, but I feel that in Canada, those things are really important things, and they need to be taken under consideration and also into the discussions when talking about these other things I just mentioned. But I think the first thing would be this kind of nationwide program. What do we really mean when we're talking about ending homelessness, and then have all the different governance and decision making levels together, and then make a plan that everyone can agree on, and then start implementing it, not just talking about it. Because I think that has been the case, not just in many European countries as well, that I have seen so many great strategy papers, but then after a couple of years nothing gets done, and that can be a bit frustrating in a way.
How many levels of government are there in Finland?
Well, now three actually as well, because we used to have had two, but now we have three, because in 2023 we had a big social and healthcare reform. So we have municipalities, and now we have these new social well-being counties, which are responsible of social and healthcare services. So we have actually three different levels as well at the moment, but we are quite new to the system, so we don't know yet all the setbacks or challenges.
And when the decision was made to end homelessness, how many levels were there?
Two.
And was it the impetus of the government to work together, or did organizations like yours work directly with them, to both levels of government, to help coordinate the approach?
Yeah, I think the Finnish housing first has been always a bit different compared to other models, and also the goal to end homelessness, because at the end of the day it has been a governmental decision to end homelessness and start doing housing first as well. So in a way, the government had to advocate and lobby the NGOs and the service providers and the landlords that, hey, this is the way we will be working on in the future, housing first. And then on the contrary to other countries where the NGOs and service providers try to advocate and lobby the government to start doing housing first on some level. So I think it has been a bit different in a way, and there has been always this cooperation. So for example, in the international programs, there is the governmental organizations, cities, municipalities, and also NGOs working together with their own responsibilities. And then Y Foundation's responsibility has always been the housing, and then since 2013 coordinating the national housing first network.
Thank you so much, Juha, for joining us and for all the incredible work you've done in leading collaboration on the charge of ending homelessness. Is there anything more that you would want to share with us before we end?
Keep doing the good work. I know that it can be sometimes feel like it's a hard work to do, and it should be. But at the end of the day, I feel like there's a real momentum at the moment around the world to make progress towards ending homelessness. So keep working hard, and eventually we will get there.
Thank you so much, Juha, and thank you for joining us on the show today.
Thank you for having me. Take care.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
What an inspiring conversation with Juha Kahila, a reminder that ending homelessness isn't a dream, it's a decision. Finland showed us that when housing is treated as a human right and systems are built around that principle, real change is possible. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe, share, and join us in continuing the conversation on how we can create a Canada and a world where no one is without a home in a society that works. This podcast is brought to you by Blue Door.
You're listening to On the Way Home with your host, Emmy Kelly.